I am a Chief Experience Officer, and I'm going to try to explain a little bit today about what I think that means. And I get to make it up because we don't have a lot of roles like this, right? So let me start. How many of you have been to Walt Disney World? I did not invent the Magic Band, but I was in the room when it was invented, when it was created. It was a very fun project to be a part of. How many of you have been to Benz Stadium? I also didn't build the building, but I was in the room when we helped program it, create, curate, design all elements of the fan experience, including, how many of you have been to an Atlanta United match? Isn't that the coolest damn experience ever? I'm not taking any credit for it. I am not. That team, and I was part of the organization before actually we hired our president, every single thing that was done to create that brand manifests itself on game day, match day, to create an experience that people go, that's the best sports experience I've ever been to. And then you go, who won? And you go, I don't even remember. Because it was that awesome. I don't even like soccer, people will say, but it's still the best experience I've been to, right? So I'm going to draw on some of those examples, and then I'm going to ask you, how many people have heard of Cortland? If any of you raise your hand, I do not believe you. So I get contacted about being a chief experience officer for this company called Cortland. Right? Disney, awesome. Falcons, Atlanta United, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, awesome. Cortland, who the heck are they? So I have to look them up. They're in an industry called multifamily, which I then also have to look up and go, what is that? So Cortland builds and designs and operates apartment communities. What many of you would call apartment complexes, which is what I called it before I joined. No, it's a community that we're creating. We own 50,000 apartment units in the United States, about 85,000 residents. And when I talked to the CEO, he said, we have a bold ambition to be #1 in the world when it comes to not only the ownership of apartment units, but the experience we create. And the last decade has been fantastic for us as a company, but the only way we continue to achieve that vision is about the experience. So I said, so what are you looking for in a chief experience officer role? And he says, I don't know. But I'm hoping I can find somebody who can help figure it out. So I get announced as not only the company's first chief experience officer, I'm the industry's first chief experience officer. And I don't say that to brag. I say that because I then sat in the room going, what the hell am I supposed to do? I'm in an industry I don't know, trying to figure out the resident experience, which I don't quite understand, and a business model that I have to learn. So here I am. I've been at it for about 6.5 or 7 months, but what I realized is in all of my career, I've been involved in creating and designing experiences like all of you in this room. So what I'm hoping today is I talk about the roles that we play, each of us play, in our day-to-day jobs. Some of this may sound familiar. But I have to start by telling everybody in my company, well, what's an experience? And we'll all define it a little differently, but the simplistic way to define it is it's a combination of your product that you offer, the service that you deliver, and the services that you offer with your brand wrapped around it in a way that this bottom piece is the most important element that drives an emotional connection. You're not just trying to do something that people go, yeah, that's fine. But that's awesome. And when done really well, people react like this, right? They're happy. I love working with this company. I love this company. I will always be loyal to this company. Why? I can't really tell you. Sometimes they can't articulate because it's subconscious and it's an emotional connection. So that's part of our kind of definition set. I don't have to go through this because I've already seen this on like 2 slides today, right? I'm sitting here going, oh, I'm going to help these people understand what an experience. I don't even have to go through this. For any of you who've read The Experience Economy, Joe Pine, and you're right, the Gilmore guy does always get left off, defined this kind of history of the economic stages as we went from an agrarian economy to an industrial economy based on product, to a service economy, which we've been in for the last 30 to 40 years, to now this notion of an experience economy. People have paid more every step along the journey to create what used to be, happy birthday, I made you a cake and I stuck a candle in it, to I now spent $500 and took you and 8 of your friends to Sky Zone to have a birthday experience, right? We willingly, for those of you who are parents, spend way more money on birthdays than our parents ever spent on us because you're creating an experience. Happy 5th birthday. You won't remember any of this, but I'm doing it anyway. So we know the companies who do this really well. These companies not only engender loyalty from their customers, sometimes rabid loyalty. I've been in Atlanta since 2014 after spending 2 decades at Disney, and I got to tell you, I can't figure out the damn Chick-fil-A thing. Like Arthur Blank, who I had the great pleasure to work for, had an office over in Buckhead, and there a cop shows up at like 11:30 in the morning to direct traffic because the Chick-fil-A is jammed right across the street as McDonald's. I'm like, it's a chicken sandwich with pickles, people. Come on. However, I've come to realize a values-driven organization, which all of these companies are, with a relentless, vigilant focus on the customer experience, create a level of loyalty. Visceral reaction if I said, it's just a chicken sandwich. Screw you, Gomes. It's way better than that. Each of these companies. Universal Studios creates awesome rides. They can't even hold a candle to the Disney theme park experience. Can't hold a candle. It's the culture, the value of the entire organization. I don't care if you're the person who works in the laundry facility that just washes, by the way, biggest laundry facility in the world, washing sheets or towels for the 35,000 hotel rooms that Disney owns and operates. You will never interact with a guest directly, but the guest interacts with what you do every day. And those people can go home and tell you how I contribute to the guest experience. True. It's unbelievable. So we won't go into too many examples with these companies, but each of them, and I'm sure many of you guys work for companies as well that know the whole organization is committed to delivering a great customer experience. Okay, so what's the role of a chief experience officer? I have purposefully used lowercase because this isn't about my role. This is about all of your roles. That there are a series of different hats that each of you wear or must wear willingly or intentionally, and I'm going to share with you some rules. So this is roles and rules. I have 11 roles. I actually originally had 13, but for obvious reasons, didn't want to go with 13. I should have gone to 10, easy, nice number, but I didn't know which one to cut. So you'll have 11 different roles that each of you play, and then I will have a rule, sometimes 2 rules, that go along with things I've learned in my 25 years doing experience-related stuff. Okay. So if you're in the customer experience business, you got to start with the customer. You are the voice of the customer. And the rule is you need to listen to your customers, and you need to do so with all of your senses. You don't just want to see what they're writing in surveys, or what they're telling you in focus groups, or what they're writing on Google, or any other review site. But you need to listen. You need to watch their reactions. You need to walk in their shoes. And then you need to advocate for them. I understand what our customers are going through. So I once had a gentleman that I had the great pleasure to work with, a gentleman named Lee Cockrell. Lee was the executive vice president of operations at Disney. Very simplistic approach to things. But he could walk into any place at Disney and immediately spot 5 things that are frustrating the customer. You're the manager of the food and beverage location going, how the heck did he just do that? I work here every single day. It's the difference between being what I call passively present, right, versus being focused each day in your space. You walk into that space every day. You see all the mistakes being made, but you've blinded yourself to it, right? You need to be actively observant. He would sit there and say, you know, the condiment cart's in the wrong location. Look at all the collision points we're causing. You know, the way in which we've set up the tables and the way we're bussing them isn't right. We haven't left enough room there. The way in which the menu is being managed. I don't know why I'm beeping. So, safe, bad experience. But you have to be the voice of the customer. Our CEO now walks into any apartment community, and it's unbelievable how much he can immediately pick up. So we walk into an apartment home. So for those of you who lived in an apartment or have ever toured an apartment, you go on the tour, right? The tour is a curated experience. We try to learn a little bit about you and then customize aspects of what we're going to talk about based on what we just learned about you. But in all cases, you're going to go into the apartment model. So we go into the model. It's been completely renovated. It's fantastic, intentionally designed in all regards. And we open the door, and the door goes, "Eeeh." It sounds like I just entered Vincent Price's house. I've subconsciously, through that audio cue, already prejudged your apartment before I've walked in. So I said to our head of operations, maybe our guys should carry a little WD-40 around to be able to make sure that everything else that's been intentionally done and chosen is reflected, isn't destroyed by the simple opening of the door. You need to listen with all your senses and then be that voice of the customer. You need to be a servant leader. So if you're in an organization where your CEO or any of you think, I am the designer of the experience, and you treat yourself as the most important person in the room, you will quickly realize you're not the most important person in the room. Your customers are. And those who then serve your customers, and you've heard that 2 or 3 times already today. This is Arthur Blank's philosophy. And he said the only way in which we were able to open hundreds of Home Depot stores and have the one in Phoenix operate as great as the one in New Hampshire is because we practice this philosophy every day. Arthur goes, I'm at the bottom. My job is to support all of my executive team. Strategy, resources, clarity of vision, upholding our core values. They, in turn, will support their frontline staff, who then, in turn, deliver that great customer experience. One of the rules I've learned, and I went to Catholic school for 13 years, the golden rule has been drilled into me. But then one day I realized, wait, the golden rule is selfish. I want to treat you the way I want to be treated. I need to treat you the way you want to be treated. Which means in a customer service business, you need to know who each individual really is as your customer. But even from a leadership perspective, I would challenge you, do not lead all of your 5, 6, 8 direct reports the same way. They each have different personalities, different motivations. You need to treat them the way they want to be treated. You follow the platinum rule in the way in which you lead, the way in which you communicate, the way in which you interact with each customer. You will create a much better overall end of experience. You have to play the role of orchestrator. All organizations, functions, capabilities, incentives, brand efforts, etc., all need to be aligned around the customer experience. If they're not, I don't care how great each of you are, the gaps will manifest. You can't have an incentive structure that's aligned just around the bottom line and then think you're holding all of your operations teams accountable for the customer experience. Sorry, dude, I'm going to go where the money is. And I'm going to attribute this quote to an SVP at Disney, Tom Boyles, who once said, no one person owns the customer experience. You may be in a role of chief experience officer or some experience head in your company. You're either a customer experience company or you're not. And I tell everybody in the organization, this isn't about Mike Gomes figuring out the customer experience. This is about making sure that every part of the organization is aligned around the customer, because somebody always owns the moment. Somebody owns the call center. Somebody owns your mobile app. Somebody owns your in-person experience. And you need to make sure that each of those different quote-unquote departments are aligned in that regard. You're also going to play the role of dot connector. I was referred to by the CEO at Mercedes-Benz Stadium as, you're my human systems integrator. We had a technical systems integrator, IBM, who helped build the technical foundation for the stadium. But someone who's working across all these different departments, often none of whom report to you. But you realize the vision that you may have can only be executed if you can get disparate departments. Tom Staggs, who was the chairman of Disney Parks, which meant he ran all of Disney's Parks division worldwide, including cruise, said, we think our guest is consuming our experience, but in actuality, we're making them consume our org chart. Think about that. The silos that naturally form, even if the whole organization is aligned around customer experience, they do things, the organization does, through the lens in which they live. You'd go on WaltDisneyWorld.com and you'd book your vacation and you'd start to plan, oh, I want to go to Animal Kingdom on Tuesday and I want to go to Magic Kingdom on Wednesday and I want to go to these restaurants, and you'd start saving stuff, full stop. Somebody else, great idea, said, well, we should create a mobile app so that when you're at the Disney parks, you can get updates on wait times and you can see your itinerary. It never talked to WaltDisneyWorld.com. It didn't integrate. Somebody just thought about it through the lens of the park experience and didn't even think that somebody's already been doing this sitting in Cleveland for 6 months, planning out details of what they want to make sure they accomplish. To make it even worse, the folks who created PhotoPass, a fantastic photography experience where we capture all the memories of you, built yet a different website. So you went home and your memories were somewhere else. The next-gen experience that we created, where the Magic Band is probably the most visual manifestation of that, was meant to stitch all of those disparate components together. Your role, in order to make sure you achieve the vision of your organization, is constantly having to connect these dots. It's not about vertical hierarchy and control. It's about getting and winning the support of all parts of the organization. As such, you're an influencer. I say this all the time. I have a ton of accountability, no authority. Customer experience goes wrong at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Guess who's called into the office? Me. Arthur wants to know what this and what that. And I'm like, the system broke down. Or somebody technologically didn't do it. Our operations didn't bring enough staff that day. Had too many people call in. We had a bad accident. They got there late. Whatever it may be. Doesn't matter. I'm the one accountable. None of those departments report to me, which goes back to your dot connecting. So you're continuously needing to influence the organization to do the right thing for the right reason around the customer, and not to take shortcuts and not to just focus on the bottom line, right? This is a constant. The moment you think you're done, you have to run back to the beginning and do it again. Now, many of you were probably expecting me to start here, but I started with instead some of your organizational responsibilities. You're indeed a designer, right? I possess no design capabilities. I'm not a UX guy. I'm not a graphics guy, creative guy. But doesn't matter. I find myself in the role of working with other parts of the company from a design perspective. But you recognize that today's products and services just simply become the baseline, right? We've seen this in the hotel industry. I love the airline industry. It used to be, get on the plane, buckle your seatbelt, pray, land somewhere else. Now you're like, damn it, the Wi-Fi doesn't work, right? You just expect Wi-Fi and in-seat entertainment. I got on a Delta plane and they didn't have the seat back. And I said, what the hell am I supposed to do for the next 3 hours? Just sit here? So I took a nap. But I would have had a better experience if they had the thing, because that's what I just expected. I didn't download stuff from Netflix. I just expected it to be there. It's become my new baseline expectation. You also got to recognize that when you're designing stuff, there's a second rule here. Simplicity is hard, right? Think about that. You're trying to eliminate friction from your customer experience. It ain't easy making stuff simple and easy to use. Apple may have been the pioneer that said, I'm going to deliver to you a product with no instruction manual. And now look how many products we get. Sonos said, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to give you, here's the 3 steps you need to do. That's it. And voila, you're connected. It took me like an hour to figure out how to get my damn sound bar hooked up from Sony. I was on the Toshiba website, the Sony website. I'm looking for why it won't work. I'm like, and what I thought was, they should just figure this out. Why are they putting this on me? They should figure it out. Apple does. You have to be a catalyst, right? To engender change in the way in which you deliver the experience. And I challenge you to look outside your industry. When Arthur decided he wanted to do something different from a stadium programming perspective and a fan experience perspective, he said, we can't just keep hiring people out of our own industry. We're going to make the same mistakes that everybody makes in the industry. So they hired somebody from outside. He said, let's hire a guy from a place like Disney. So that's how I got the phone call. And that's how I ended up here. Outside the industry. I'm, once again, outside of an industry that I know anything about. I'm dealing with people who have been here for 20 years. They know how it's done. I ask stupid questions because I don't know how it's done. And that's sometimes how we catalyze a new opportunity. Whether you're looking at a hotel or a cruise line or Starbucks or Apple, there's applicability to your business if you look hard enough. Look outside of your industry for not just, well, here's what the competition's doing. If you want to get breakthrough experiences, the way to do it is to look outside. You have to be an innovator. You need to innovate with a purpose and learn how to say no. How hard is that? How hard is that? Apple somehow created a product with no disk drive. Well, what the hell? How am I supposed to walk around with my files? No disk drive. They even launched the iPhone with no cut and paste. They couldn't figure out how to make it delightful, so they just chose not to do it. So we asked Apple when I was at Disney, how do you keep doing what you're doing? Your hardware is spectacular. Your operating systems are easy to use and fantastic. And you have this suite of iPhoto, iTunes, the App Store. They all come together in a singular ecosystem developed by different product teams on different timelines. But they all come together. And he goes, Mike, the number one quality we have is we know how to say no. We know how to say no. Don't chase everything. When I was at Benz Stadium, we were very, very proud to do what we did with food and beverage. For those of you who've been to the stadium, I probably did 100 interviews. We looked at all the data, we listened to our customers, and the number one lowest rated thing on the game day experience, actually the 4 lowest elements, all had to do with food and beverage. So what do companies do? Build a stadium, perpetuate the same broken business model that screws the fan. I usually ask, hey, how many people have gone to the movie theater and snuck food in? And it's like 100%. Same broken business model. At some point, your customers will just get fed up and reject. So we won Sports Breakthrough of the Year for the transformational experience we created around food and beverage, and it involved no technology. 0. The reason we won against all these other great technical things on virtual reality and augmented reality and all this stuff is I went to pitch the editors of Sports Business Journal and I said, don't fall into the trap that innovation equals technology. You can innovate at the business model level. You can innovate from a process perspective. Don't just chase the shiny new toy. Know how to say no and know what your customers really want, and you will find elements of innovation. This is my favorite one. It really is. I always tell people I'm a both-and guy, not an either-or guy. And you know what? Your customers want to be both-and. You can either be this or you can be that. We hear it every single day, right? You can either be schedule-focused or budget-focused, right? You can either deliver this or you can deliver that. No one said, everyone actually did say, you can't do what we just did in food and beverage. You can't do it. You're either going to have low prices or you're going to have faster lines. Because once you lower price, you're going to create a level of demand you won't be able to satiate. I said, why? I'm a both-and kind of guy. I'm a provocateur in that regard. Let's figure it out. So we finished number 1 in price, number 1 in value, number 1 in quality, number 1 in variety, and number 1 in speed of service, and broke every record in terms of volume. Most units ever sold at a stadium was the Florida State, Alabama kickoff game, the Chick-fil-A kickoff classic. By the way, the stadium had been open like 5 days, so you can imagine how much that crushed us. But then we broke it again for the College Football National Championship. And then we broke it again when we hosted a World Cup viewing party before Atlanta United played Seattle. And by the way, I still say we. I didn't work there during this last part, but it doesn't matter. It's still we to me. Disney is still we to me, and I've been out of Disney since 14. That's how much we created and worked together on our customer experience. Be a both-and person. Look for those elements where people go, you can either do this or that. And just be the asshole in the room who says, really? I think we can do this and that. This is how Arthur Blank, one of the reasons he succeeds. He gives us challenges that you walk out of the room and go, the guy's a madman. We can't figure this out. He's expecting us to really push hard to figure that out. All right, you're a goal setter. Part of your role. How are we going to measure fan experience, Mike? I go, I don't know. In fact, I asked the guy who was hiring me, how am I going to be held accountable in this role with the Falcons? And I asked Steven, my current CEO, the same role, and he said, I don't know. We're hoping you help figure out what we're supposed to pay attention to deliver the experience. That is both a combination of, awesome, I'll just set the bar here, and scary as hell because you're staring at a blank white piece of paper. So one thing to watch out for is if you measure customer satisfaction, you might just get what you wish for. None of us want to go to a restaurant and go, hey, how was it? Satisfactory. Right? They gave me 4 stars out of 5. That's the equivalent of fine. How was it? Fine. You going to tell anybody about it? No. You going to rave about it? No. Did it delight you? Did it cause you to want to go write a review? No. You need to measure excellence, because excellence translates into emotional connection. Satisfied is 0 emotion. In which case, remember the experience, little design in the beginning, your products and services need to provide a level of an emotional connection. A reason why I will stand in the rain in New York City waiting for the iPhone to come out, even though I can just go 48 hours later and walk right into the store and buy it. It's madness, but it's a level of brand loyalty. You don't want to measure just satisfaction. You need to drive to those top excellent behaviors. Number 11, you're a storyteller. You have to continually tell stories in your own organization to perpetuate the culture. I can't tell you how many tear-jerking emails we would get of somebody who would write a letter to the president of Walt Disney World explaining, little did we know this was the last time we would see our mom. And the joy that you helped bring. I can't tell you how many we got. The cast member who went above and beyond, right? I lost my wedding ring. And someone stopped the laundry, the giant one in the world, to go find the wedding ring and deliver it back to that guest. We do the same thing at Cortland every day. Your company is doing those types of things as well every day. Find those stories of how it makes the customer feel and make it part of your culture. Perpetuate those stories. Continue to be a storyteller, not just to your customers, but inside your own company as well. That is another important role that each of you will play. Okay, final thought. The end of the day, when you put all these roles together, and others, I had Chief Empathy Officer, I had that in there as well. I had Evangelist, but those didn't make the cut for this presentation. It's about delight. Apple said, Mike, every single thing we do for the customer is captured in this notion of, does it delight you? Whether it is the way the lights come on in your car when you open the door, they don't just come on, right? They subtly dim and get brighter. You can make a washing machine that when it's done with its cycle, it just goes, ah. And none of us would think twice. We go, yeah, okay, whatever. That's just what it does. It's an annoying flipping sound, but it alerted me, I'm done. Or you could put nice little chimes in. You realize how many people just lit up and endorphins just went nuts when the Magic Band hit and that thing went green? Kids loved it. We all loved it. It went green. I can't wait to do it again. We keep the stupid Apple box even though it serves no purpose for our lives. None. I can't throw it out. It's just too perfect. It delights me. They could have easily taken the phone and shipped it in an envelope. Any type of, think about that. For those of you who received Magic Bands, we actually had a project called the UBI, out-of-box experience. We were envisioning that mom who's created the 4 custom Magic Bands for her husband and their 2 kids, opening it up and revealing to their kids, we're going to Disney World. So much so, it became a TV commercial that all we needed to do was go to YouTube. We took a box and made it part of the experience when you're sitting in Buffalo in January. Can't wait to get to Disney in April. And you can create joy and delight out of a box. Every single touch you make, I want you to challenge yourself. Are we delighting the customer? Because if you're not, back to the drawing board to figure it out. So I appreciate the time today. Thank you very much. Have a great lunch. Have a great rest of the conference. Appreciate it.